Now I would like to welcome Dylan Sue up to the stage to talk about How I Will Change the World. How I Will Change the World by Dylan Sue.
As a wise man once said, if you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and make a change. This wise man was none other than Michael Jackson, the king of rock and roll, arguably the last person that you'd expect would give the best answer to the question today. Good evening, judges, lovely audience, and of course, fellow leaders of tomorrow. I've been asked today to answer the question, how will I change the world? And in case the quote that I gave you earlier was too confusing, don't worry, I'm here to explain it by telling you three things. Firstly, a little bit about the human brain. Second of all, a story that proved that this quote actually makes sense. And thirdly, three things that I want to use this quote to change about my community. Now, let's move into my first point. A bit about the human brain. Now, here's something interesting. The average person works like this. If you tell them to do something over and over and over again, 9 out of 10 of these times, they ignore you. The first thing that your brain does is A, either ignore the person, or B, outright rejects them. If you don't believe me, just ask my mom. Now, here's something else that's interesting. We all know about peer pressure, right? Peer pressure is an anomaly. You don't need anyone to tell you to do anything. No one's telling me to dress a certain way, to talk a certain way. But for some reason, peer pressure is the most effective way to get people to do things. It's everywhere. I prefer to wear hoodies, but right now I'm wearing a suit because I felt peer pressured as everyone else is wearing formal stuff. And you might be wondering, what does this have to do with my answer? It's simple. If a teacher tells their students, go outside and pick up garbage after class, will the students listen? Probably not. If I was one of the students, I probably wouldn't. But if even one kid decides to take the initiative and goes outside after class and starts to clean up garbage, I'll be willing to bet that more than just a couple of kids, and eventually the entire class, will be outside picking up garbage soon enough. And why is this? Because this kid has popularity. He's got leverage in the class. And people want to be like him. This is peer pressure. And frankly, it's what I want to use in a positive way to change the world. Now, I'll be moving into my second point. After I've explained to you a little bit about peer pressure, let me now tell you a story about how I used the quote that I told you to change my environment. Now, let's take a moment to go 2 years into the past. I was in grade 8. We were a few weeks away from winter break. And we were all panicking. I was stressed. I was really, really worried that I'd have a bad mark. And my science teacher, my grade 8 science teacher, he did not help with this at all. He's a funny teacher. He doesn't tell you your individual scores. You can ask him all you'd like. What he does is at the beginning of every single class, he'll take a piece of paper and write in the biggest font the class average mark. And to make matters even worse, on top of all of our stress, the mark that he put up on this day was 73%. 73%, I know, it's terrible. And being the good Asian boy that I am, the second I saw this number, my heart skipped a beat and I almost fainted. And that's when I realized, if the class average is 73%, that's what? A really, really low B? A high C? Still, it's an F. I thought to myself, if I'm going to not get this mark, I'm going to have to work harder. So in the weeks to follow, what I did was I stayed up late. I worked hard. I stayed in during lunch breaks, during all the breaks that I could, and I worked my butt off. And what did I get in return? I got 90s, 100s, 96s on all of my assignments, all my quizzes, all my little tests that I was doing before the break. And every single time I'd get these back, not only me, but the people around me would feel motivated to also do good. One of my friends actually peeked behind my shoulder and said, Dylan, what on earth is that? I said, it's a 97%. And he said, but how? I told him I stayed up late. I didn't play my games. I didn't go outside during lunch break. And that's how I got my marks. And he told me, I think I'm pulling a C right now. Maybe I should try that. And it's funny because after that, in about a week or so time, people around me, I started to notice that they were also getting better marks. They were also starting to get these 90s, these 100s that everyone loves to get. And I'm very proud to say, since every story needs a happy ending, that by the end of this 2 weeks, these few weeks that we had before the break was about to happen, the class average mark that my teacher put up was a solid 87%. I know, we're all Asian. It doesn't seem like much, but it's an A, and that's pretty impressive. On top of that, at the end of the year, I received a 97 that time, so it was amazing for me. Not only did this give me a good mark, though, not only did it make me feel good about my splendid report card, it also made me realize that I had a power to change the people around me, not by telling them to do something, not by forcing them to do something, not by bugging them, but to change myself first, by working hard on my own, finishing my assignments on time, putting in maximum effort. I had the power to change the people around me to be more like me. And that, to me, was mind-blowing. Now, I'm going to be going into my third point now, being essentially 3 things that I want to change using this quote. Now, as we've already figured out by now, my speech is on changing yourself to change those around you. And 3 things that I want to change are A, more volunteering in our community. It's nice to see people volunteering, and it's good. Now, secondly, I want to raise more awareness on those less fortunate in our communities. There are many people living in poverty, in bad conditions, and that's not okay. And thirdly, I want to just have people be nicer in general. One of the reasons why I wasn't really into volunteering at first was because I thought that I wouldn't be allowed to. People were going to judge me. But what did I do? I went up anyway, and it was amazing. Now, to close, I've brought you these 3 points, and I'd like you to all ask yourselves as you leave tonight. Instead of asking other people to do stuff, look inside of you and check to see what can you do to change yourself to be like those around you. After all, this is Leaders of Tomorrow, not Bosses of Tomorrow. Thank you.